Why am I wearing headphones and seated in front of a DJ station? I'm glad you asked. This is a special edition of the Shellac Stacks, a Shellac Stacks listening session, where I will not only share with you some of the new finds in my 78 RPM record collection, but I will also play some of the records for you. A Shellac Stacks listening session. That's coming up next. Hello, vinyl community, music lovers, shellac lovers, 780 RPM collectors, and really just anyone else who just happened to stumble upon this video. Welcome to Tone and Grooves. This is a special edition of the Shellac Stacks, what I'm calling a Shellac Stacks listening session, where I've got it all set up here with my mixer and turntable and using the computer to record video as well as the audio via Audacity, and it's going to be a listening session, so I'm going to share some of my recent vinyl finds or shellac finds, new 78 RPM records that I've added to the collection, and then actually play some of them for you so we can hear some of these fantastic tunes from, these are all things from the late teens and into, I think the most recent one I'll share with you in this episode is mid-1920s. So all teens and 20s. And the focus here in this episode is going to be on the saxophone, because I love the saxophone. The saxophone is probably my favorite jazz instrument. I also play the saxophone. I don't keep up with it like I should or would like to now, but I did play alto saxophone all through grade school, junior high, high school, and into college. Was in marching band, was in some, various, trios and ensembles and whatnot. So I just kind of always have had this love for the saxophone. And it's one of my favorite instruments, and so I collect, obviously, because some of you have seen my Art Pepper video that I shared last week, and other videos where I've featured jazz albums by saxophone players and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going on and on, rambling. Anyway, I dig the saxophone, and so I collect, jazz records with saxophone players, and I collect 78 RPM records with saxophone players, and think people like Rudy Wiedoeft and Clyde Durr and F. Wheeler Wadsworth, and just a lot of these, the Six Brown brothers, early saxophone artists, musicians, and ensembles. It's kind of a thing for me. So anyway, now that I've rambled on for over 2 minutes, let's get into this, shall we? I don't know. People sometimes want the technical information, so I guess just so you know. I use a Audio-Technica. It's the ATLP 120 turntable. That's what we have here. It's set up with a Grado 78 cartridge and stylus on there. And then I have a Newmark. This is an M6 mixer. And then I'm using my Mac here with Audacity software to record the audio, and I'm actually recording in mono right now. The mixer is set to mono, the cartridge is mono, and Audacity is recording in mono, because that's the way these records were recorded and were meant to be heard. So there's the technical info. I'll try to remember to write that up and include it in the description below in case you want all those details. Anyway, let's dive into this. So first up, I've got a number of records by Benny Kruger's orchestra recently. Some of these I picked up at an antique store. south of where I live in the Eau Claire area, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Some of these I picked up at that antique store. Some of these I purchased online through eBay. There's a great seller of 78 RPM records on eBay who does a fantastic job, has a phenomenal selection, and packages extremely well. Some of these records were actually, well, anyway, may not have been in that video. I did an unboxing video a while back, and one of the boxes was from that seller with 78 RPM records. And I don't think any of these records were in that lot that I showed, but many of these came from that same seller. Again, man, I just keep rambling on. Benny Kruger's Orchestra. I've been getting into Benny Kruger because I've been reading this book, and I should have had it here. I guess I'll try to put a picture up. It's called, now the name is going to slip by me, isn't it? Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Anyway, the name of the book totally escapes me right now, and I'm not going to be able to recall it. When I do, I will share it with you. I'll put a picture up. Anyway, the book is all about the white jazz artists and jazz bands from the early days of jazz, teens and 20s. And reading in that book, I read about the original Dixieland Jazz Band, which has a whole chapter in there about that. And it mentioned in there Benny Kruger. Benny Kruger was a saxophone player, alto saxophone player, who the record company, if I remember correctly what I read, actually recruited Benny Kruger to play with the original Dixieland Jazz Band at one point. They did not have a saxophone to begin with, if I remember correctly, and the record company kind of, because of the popularity of the saxophone, somewhat insisted, from what I remember, that they have a saxophone player in the band. And so Benny Kruger plays on some of the recordings by the original Dixieland Jazz Band. He then went on to form his own band, orchestra. It's not really a jazz band. It's more of a, dance band orchestra. But really kind of interesting, with a cool history with that connection, Benny Kruger and the original Dixieland Jazz Band. So I've been picking up Benny Kruger records. What we have here, this is on Brunswick. This is Brunswick 2130 from 1921. This is All by Myself. This is Benny Kruger's orchestra, All by Myself. Let's take a listen. Okay, so there we have, that's Benny Kruger's orchestra. Again, that song is called All by Myself from 1921. Ooh, we have some whistling. Totally cool. I dig that kind of early 1920s dance band type material. let's just head on down here. I'm going to take that off, and we'll flip that over and play side B. Side B is a song called Saturday. Again, Benny Kruger's orchestra. Very cool. Some nice saxophone runs there by Benny Kruger, and really kind of a nice banjo piece there. I don't remember who's playing those instruments, so I'm going to look it up in my trusty Brian Rust discography. And while I'm at it, not whack the turntable there. Let's see. The banjo player's name is Bill Ehrenberg. So Bill Ehrenberg on banjo. Wow, very cool trumpet there. Let's see, who's on trumpet? Benny Bloom is on trumpet, looks like, and Fred Schilling is on trombone. Okay, so up next is another Benny Kruger record. These are all on Brunswick Records. This is Brunswick 2272, and this is from 1922. Title of this one is, we got Stumbling. This is called Stumbling. Oh, I love the bass there. Bump, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. That's very cool. Yeah, so that's Benny Kruger stumbling. We'll flip this over and play second side. I guess also something maybe I should note on a technical for technical stuff. Just FYI. I will also be running all of these recordings through the Click Repair software, which is a fantastic software. Chris at Dixieland Farms has mentioned it before, and I mean he uses it live, like as he's got his turntable and whatnot hooked up to it, so that as he plays records, just in his living room, like listening to them, just general listening, he can run it through. He just automatically, like live, runs it through the Click Repair to clean up the sound. I don't do that, but I do when I make recordings, because I do a lot of work with my 78s, recording them to digital so that I can listen to them on my phone, or just it's probably kind of a sin, to what the whole reason for having them on record is to be able to listen to them analog, right? But it's a lot easier to have a digital file, a recording of those records, and just call those up on my computer, as opposed to going into my boxes of 78 records and picking out certain ones. Although sometimes I do that because it is fun to just kind of have listening sessions like we're doing here today, and just pull out records and listen to them. But anyway, so I do use the Click Repair software on my recordings of my 78 records, and it does a fantastic job of cleaning up the sound, removing clicks, pops, and even the crackle of surface noise. So what I'm hearing right now is a more crackly sound, but what you're going to hear is a very nice cleaned up version. So anyway, so going to the flip side here on that Benny Kruger record, this is called I'm Just Wild About Harry. Okay, so that was I'm Just Wild About Harry, Benny Kruger's orchestra. I got one more Benny Kruger record. We'll give that a listen to here. I guess I'm seeing the downside here to this stationary microphone is I can't easily talk to you all too at the same time while I am changing up records. So this one is called That Old Gang of Mine. It's on, there's the Brunswick label. That Old Gang of Mine, Benny Kruger's orchestra. This is the latest one that I have in this batch. This is 1923. That Old Gang of Mine. Let's give this one a listen. right, Benny Kruger, that old gang of mine, and we're gonna take that down. I'm gonna go ahead and flip that over quick and play some of the. Let's stop that. Some of the second side. Side B is "Wonder If She's Lonely Too." Okay. Benny Kruger's orchestra. Wonder if she's lonely too. Yeah, I'm just, it's interesting. Just the connection with, interesting the connection with the different groups in the 20s, the different the way a lot of these guys played with each other as sidemen, and then had their own bands and whatnot. It's really interesting. Again, that book that I still can't remember the name of, that I've been reading. Man, that is terrible. Anyway, in fact, I was just reading a chapter here on Eddie Lang and Joe Venuti, and how they played with Red Nichols' band, and so in that band you've got Red Nichols, and then Benny Goodman, and I think, was it Jimmy or Tommy Dorsey, and like Glenn Miller played with that band for a while, as well as what's his name? The trombone player. Oh shoot, Jack Teagarden. So it's just, and all of those individually went on to their own careers, and fantastic careers as leaders, but how they all kind of played together as sidemen to begin with in their early start. So it's a very interesting history, all the jazz stuff. It's like a genealogy, and like who played with who at what time. It's just it's so much fun. So the whole Benny Kruger and original Dixieland Jazz Band connection is super cool for me. Okay, so what's coming up next is we're going to switch from Brunswick Records now to Columbia Records. This is another saxophone player, Paul Beasy. Paul Beasy was a tenor saxophone player, and this is the Paul Beasy Trio, a record from Columbia, catalog number A2952. This is from 1920, and I'm tempted to play this whole song because it's so much fun. It's called Chili Bean, and you've got it's obviously the Paul Beasy Trio playing the music, but you also have Frank Krumit doing the vocal of this song. And Frank Krumit was a crooner. Well, not really a crooner. Crooners weren't in until the electric era of recording. So he's a tenor singer, very much in the same vein as Billy Murray, who is one of my favorites. Frank Krumit has a similar style, kind of a comedic singer, although he does a little bit of everything. But I tend to enjoy the more comedic songs that he does, as well as Billy Murray. So this is called Chili Bean, super fun song from 1920. This is on the Columbia label. fantastic. Fantastic sax work.
On a South Sea island not so long ago, lived a girl called Shelley, and the fellows loved her so, they loved her so. They loved her, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. They were a bit of little puppeteers who came from near and far. They loved the Untara, she played on her guitar. Every night in the pale moonlight they gathered beneath the stars, and as they formed a ring, why they'd all begin to sing. Oh, you lank and leany, chilly, beanie, eeny, meeny, mo. You know we love you so. We love your jada, charada. Our life won't be so dreamy if you let us go. You think we're full of blarney, we're full of chili con carne. Chili bean says, boys, I'm green. I don't know what you mean, but you know that I'm so slow. What I want, I do not know. They said, well, Chili, you can bet what you want you're going to get. Before we go, we'd like to know. Tell us, is it yes, or tell us, is it no? You lank and leany, Chili beanie, we all love you so.
Oh man, I love it. It's just, it's funny and fun, and Paul Beasy was fantastic sax player. He's not one of the more, well-known today, hasn't really, maintained a following, or, whereas like Rudy Wiedoft is one who's still celebrated today as an early saxophone player. Paul Beasy, not so much. He's a little much more unknown today, but just fantastic sax player, and really enjoy his stuff. Very cool. So that was Chili Bean, Paul Beasy Trio, and we will fade that out and go to the next. Again, from 1920 on the Columbia label, Paul Beasy Trio. So as I said, this is all pretty much saxophone stuff. So what we got up next is, and I wish I knew for sure how to pronounce his name. We're going to Victor Records now. This is a Victor record, a Batwing label Victor record, from 1922. This is Clyde. I say Durr. I don't know if it's Doerr. I think that's German. A German name. So I'm not sure if that's Durr or Duer or Durr. But anyway, Clyde Durr, who was also a tenor saxophone player in the teens, 20s. And he had a band on his own. He also played with Art Hickman's orchestra. Art Hickman was a drummer and led Art Hickman's orchestra was a band out on the West Coast in California. And so Clyde Durr started there, and then they formed a trio, the Art Hickman Trio, and with Clyde Durr on saxophone, and it has vibraphone. And now I'm blanking on the gentleman's name who played vibraphone or xylophone. Anyway, it's not going to come to me. This is terrible. I'm like losing all of my information. Anyway, so this is Clyde Durr and his orchestra, which was, an orchestra he formed later after he had performed with Art Hickman and Art Hickman Orchestra, and as well as the Art Hickman Trio. So this is Clyde Durr, and his orchestra. The song is called "When the Leaves Come Tumbling Down." Hello. There you have Clyde Durr and his orchestra when the leaves come tumbling down. I love it. It's really, and that little cool, like those little runs, that's kind of a standard, standard weapon in the saxophone player's arsenal in the 20s. That kind of those little runs and arpeggios and whatnot. So super fun. I mean, just a lot of fun to listen to. So that's Clyde Durr and his orchestra. As I said, he played with Art Hickman's orchestra and was 1/3 of the Art Hickman's trio. And up next, I have on Columbia now, going from Victor to Columbia in really nice condition. I was looking at this, and that last one will be interesting to see how it sounds through the click repair, because it's not in the best shape. Very clicky as I was listening to it, so it'll be interesting to see how that cleans up. But anyway, this is in really nice condition. This is the Art Hickman trio, and this song is called "Nobody Knows," from 1920 on Columbia, the blue Columbia label. Art Hickman trio. Like I said, I don't remember. While it's playing, I'll see if I can get that information about who else was in the Art Hickman trio. But here we go. This is the Art Hickman trio from 1920. The song's called "Nobody Knows." Okay, so that was the Art Hickman trio with "Nobody Knows," and that is, let's see here, we got Clyde Durr on saxophone, and then you've got Frank Ellis and Bert Ralton make up the rest of the trio. Still not sure who's on vibes, but anyway. So that was the Art Hickman trio, "Nobody Knows" from 1920. Up next and last, I think this is going to wrap it up because this is getting to be a long video. It's been a fun experiment anyway. Fun experiment to try something new and kind of a more live setting. Share some of this music with you, music that I just love and just really get into. Kind of interesting format. So I would really appreciate feedback on this whole setup, this whole method, this whole style of video. Is this enjoyable? Is this something that's fun, that's interesting? If it is, what room is there for improvement? What would you like to see different? That kind of thing. We're just really love and appreciate the feedback, commentary, constructive criticism. So please feel free to drop some comments below and share that with me. That would be great. As well as, hey, how about requests for, future listening session Shellac Stack videos? What type of music would you like to hear? What type of music would you like me to share? I would love to know, and I'm all about doing that and sharing that. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for subscribing. Again, and thank you in advance for the comments. So this last song is the Art Hickman's orchestra. Art Hickman's orchestra. We just heard the trio with Paul Beasy. No, not Paul Beasy. Man, I'm getting all mixed up with Clyde Durr. And so that trio was from Art Hickman's orchestra. So now we have Art Hickman's orchestra. This is on Columbia A3322 from 1920, and this is a classic jazz standard. This is the Japanese Sandman. So Art Hickman's orchestra playing the Japanese Sandman. Again, thanks so much for watching, and thank you so much for your comments and for chiming in. Really will appreciate that. Can't end without the standard sign off. So until next time, stay in the groove.